Welcome to the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast. Tune in every Thursday as we share inspirational stories from the world's greatest creators, entrepreneurs, and go-getters about how they've turned life's lemons into lemonade. And now, here's your host of Lemonade Stand Stories, Charan Prabhakar.
What is going on, guys? This is Charan Prabhakar with the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast, and today's podcast has been years in the making. Literally, it has been years and years of grueling work, of grueling just begging and asking and inviting with kindness. But sitting across from me is the legendary Bryan Rowland. We've been buddies we were actually trying to figure this out, but it's been almost, not quite a decade, but pretty dang close to a decade, you know? It's insane. And Bryan, I'm just going to tell you guys, is one of the most talented human beings I have ever worked with and talked to. No, I'm serious.
Wow.
I'm serious. Even that coat that you're wearing,
you.
it's getting you're giving talent off of that.
Thank you.
Bryan is a very, very talented filmmaker, editor, director, producer extraordinaire who works at Maximum Effort. He's the number one employee at Maximum Effort. And in case you wanted to know what Maximum Effort is, it's the company that George Dewey is the president of, partnered with Ryan Reynolds, also a common name that you may know. He's been in many, many movies. And Ryan had asked Bryan to come on board, not because your name's rhymed or anything, but he asked Bryan to come on board and start directing all of the personal spots, all the commercials and things. And so some of the most viral videos that Ryan has done over the years is all because of Bryan's doing. In fact, you guys, I am going to actually read to you all a quote that Ryan Reynolds said about Bryan himself.
Oh boy, here we go.
And it's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. But he says that Bryan has directed some of my favorite Maximum Effort work and is a true genius.
True genius.
True genius, you guys. He's also approachably handsome, which of course you can see. We're shooting in HD. He's also kind and a charming rapscallion. Ryan Reynolds' words, not mine.
That's nice.
And Ryan is a very, very nice guy. I've actually met Ryan a couple of times, and he's so great. He was so gracious to me.
He's a good guy.
And
He's a really good guy.
I just love the fact that you guys are working together and doing awesome stuff. I remember when you were telling me the time when Ryan called you, because you had done a little bit of work from before that you were brought on.
You know, I was introduced to Ryan and Blake. It was years and years ago. I was shooting a documentary in Africa, in Ghana. Yeah. And I had just gotten off the plane, and I had gotten a text from Ryan's brother-in-law, Bart Johnson, who you know.
Yes.
Saying, hey, I can't tell you what this thing is, but you need to be at this certain location at a certain time wearing these clothes. I'm like, okay. So I showed up, and it turned out it was Ryan and Blake's wedding. Yeah. So I had never shot a wedding before, but I got to be with them and shoot their wedding. And I had never met more gracious, wonderful human beings in my life. They were so incredibly gracious and kind.
They're amazing. I've met Blake and Ryan through Bart and Robin as well. And incredibly kind people, so generous and just lovely people. Yeah. Right. So really great people. So I loved it. But I want to talk, Bryan, about you and the beginnings of your film career, because what people don't realize, you guys, is, Maximum Effort, they have an LA division where George is at. They have a New York division. In New York. Because Ryan is over there. Yep. But they also have a Heber City, Utah division.
They do.
Where Bryan Rowland is located.
In my basement.
In your basement. Yes. In his basement.
That's where we are.
So that's where we're at. Dude, I want to hear the beginnings. I want to hear, because you weren't initially involved in film, right? That was not what you were really
It's what I always wanted to do. My grandfather and my grandmother, they were actors. And as a kid growing up, I was always just fascinated. It would be this a big event if they had this little bit part in an ABC show that would come on, we'd watch. And so I always thought the industry was really, really cool. And I always felt like I wanted to do it. But how do you break in? How do you get started with this stuff? And this was, back in the day when it was really hard to even get the tools to create and produce content. So it was always something I kind of wanted to do, but I didn't know how. So.
Right. And so you told me, we were just having a discussion, you were working for another type of company, right? Like I don't even know what it was, but it was not film related.
No. It was actually, I worked for a couple of years actually for the LDS Church.
Okay.
And I had set up their visual effects and motion graphics group, and I really enjoyed doing that. They gave me complete autonomy. I kind of treated it like my own little business, and I really enjoyed it there. And then an opportunity came to work for another company, and it was, it was like back in 2006, 2007. And I went to go work there, and things were going like gangbusters. I had all these crazy opportunities. I set up I remember we went to meet with Iger that worked at Disney, the president of Disney. We did a big thing for them. We did a big thing for Oprah. I helped set up the first online player for like the Discovery Channel and the Warner Brothers. And it was like this crazy, it was like right at the beginning of when video was going online. And so it was this very new opportunity. I loved it. But then 2008 came.
Yes.
And
everything kind of came to a halt.
Everything kind of came to a hard halt. And I remember I had just watched you remember the movie Cinderella Man?
Yes, of course.
The beginning of that movie where like he's doing so well, like he's making all this money.
Yes.
And then they have this like title sequence, and then like everything disappears.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in 2008. That's what happened with me. And I was in a position where, my wife can't work, and I've got a couple of kids, I've got a mortgage, and I had made it to the last round of layoffs, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
Oh man.
It was terrifying, but I knew at that point I hadn't been doing a lot of creative like production work. I hadn't been doing much at all, but I knew how to edit roughly. And I had my father-in-law's Canon 5D Mark II, and I just started desperately making phone calls to everybody I knew. And I got a call to meet with somebody that actually worked for the LDS Church, and they said that they're about to start this new campaign, and if I could show up and just maybe tell them how I would approach the problem they were facing. And the problem they were facing was, they said, we want to be able to have people tell their own stories without putting any spin on it, just have them tell their story with little to no crew. Like basically you just show up at their house, you film them, you try to tell a story, and then we can try to use that. And I did that, and I did the very, very first one of these videos, and then they loved the idea of it. And then for the next, gosh, I want to say like 5 to 6 years, I spent my time traveling all over the world. I would get an email saying, hey, we've got a few stories or people in Japan that could be good stories. Could you just show up and go do that? You bet. So I would just fly out.
Wow.
Yeah, it would just be me and one other person. And then it was very, very, very small. And that was essentially my film school of just trying to figure out, how do I operate a camera? How do I operate sound? How do I operate, the lighting? And because I knew I was responsible for the edit, I dang well better get the shots.
Well, not only that, you also had to ask the right questions, right?
Yes. So I learned how to interview. I learned how to really sit down and talk to somebody.
Cool.
Because I would have a few hours with them, and there would be no set like agenda. It was just, tell me about your life and how the way you live your life is important to you, and just they would take us to their favorite places. It ruined me for traveling forever, because I got to do like 60 of these things all over the world, everywhere. And so they took me to all their incredible like favorite places, and I really got to know these individuals and tell these just beautiful stories. And so I just fell deeply in love with just the idea of just sitting down with somebody and just telling their story. But so that was my film school, right?
Right.
And just trying to figure out how to do this stuff, and then come back and do all the editing, and what that taught me was, okay, wherever this career goes down the road, and I wasn't getting paid much to do this stuff, but it was an incredible experience, just enough to take care of the family.
Yeah.
But what I learned was, one, if I'm going to do this like forever for the rest of my life, I have got to stick with post-production, because post-production allowed me to be a dad. I could be home,
right?
I could go get the story, come home, try to find a way to tell it. But I had to be really good at post, because typically in this world, as a director or a shooter, you shoot something and you send it off, and you kind of don't see it again.
Yeah.
Until like the post team kind of does their thing, and then you see it. So I had to earn that right to be able to own that process. And so post has always been a huge part of what I do, as far as it's the last place where that story is told. It's a really important place. So I learned how to do that. And then I had to be really aggressive in staying on top of camera tech, because this was back when camera stuff was just exploding, right? Like we went from so incredibly expensive to be able to tell a story like as far as just making it look really beautiful and good, like really cinematic, you know. And then I remember this filmmaker took a Canon 5D Mark II and he made it look so incredible with this off the shelf camera. Now I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these 3, 6K cameras that are recording us, and like these things are incredibly expensive. Like back in the day, dude, that was like $1 million for a camera like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to see on top of the camera tech and all the other things to try to figure out how to do this stuff.
Dude, I would remember coming to your house and your house was just decked out with the latest and greatest gear. You're like, and you were like always showing me like, hey, like, you got to do like this, you got to look at that, and then your post production place was like you mastered that domain. I felt it was amazing, you know.
Well, it kind of turns into like this. I've kind of got this nerdy side of me that I just love it because it enables. It's like you're a magician, right?
Right.
And like the best magicians, like they've got these relationships with these inventors that know how to create these incredible things, and we have these relationships with literally these inventors on the hardware side and the software side that enable us as creators to just be magicians and create incredible stories.
Right.
And it's really, I love it so much. And the cool thing about it is it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point where
you can ship stuff on your phone.
You need
right.
is right there. So anyway, it's always been a big part of kind of what I've been doing, but I went down that path and it was great. But how do I go from doing these, basically the religious films to making a transition to the commercial world?
Right.
Because that's a huge shift. It's like
a huge shift.
Yeah. I mean, people that are, if you get into wedding stuff, it's just hard to make. Once you go take a lane, it's extremely hard
to move to another lane.
And because people don't trust you, they look at it, that's great, but we just don't know if you can do this part of the storytelling. So I was in a really difficult position. So that campaign ended. And I remember I had built this incredible, like, I learned how to be a storyteller, right? But I had the tools, I had the cameras, I had everything. And I also had a bank account that was just
dwindling. Yeah.
And it was getting really, really bad. And I always took a lot of pride in never, ever having to like ask mom and dad or whoever else. I never wanted to be able to have to be in that position, you know?
Of course.
And so that bank account went down and down and down. I remember I was like, what am I going to do? Who is going to hire me? This is like, I have a reel, but what am I going to do with this? Right. You know? And I remember one Sunday afternoon, my daughter, Cecily, she was like 9 years old at the time. And I said, Cess, let's go make something. I'm sick of just sitting here waiting.
Yes.
I'm sick of waiting because it feels like when you're in the business, you've got no power. You're waiting for those opportunities to come to you. You're waiting for someone to knock on your door. And there's a great talk by Mark Duplass. I don't know if you've heard this.
Oh my gosh. You are the cavalry, right?
No, the cavalry is not coming.
It's not coming. Okay.
You are the cavalry.
You are the cavalry.
Exactly right.
Right.
It is not coming.
Yes.
And he is absolutely right. And so I remember that my daughter and I grabbed my camera. We went out into the Heber North Fields and we just started filming. Like, she was so sweet. She was just, she loved to draw. And
yes, so I remember that.
I filmed this little short film with her and then we got home and I'm like, we got some cool visuals, but maybe you should tell me what you think about drawing. So I just interviewed her a little bit. And so I put this little piece together. It's just this 2-minute little piece. It's just kind of a little, this fun little spot. It's just her talking about her love of drawing and creating and that's it. And I put it online. And I didn't know this, but apparently Blake had seen the piece.
Okay, cool.
And also at the same time, she was about to launch a company of her own. And she asked me if I could help her with her launch video. And I said, 100%. And so, but I was terrified because I'd never done anything like it. So I don't know. I feel like.
And I mean, it's interesting because it's like, you know, doing something with your daughter is one thing, but then like when Blake Lively asks you to do something, there's got to be a certain level of pressure.
I was terrified. I think that's the lesson as far as what I've learned, and it's been like this wash, rinse, repeat cycle for my entire career. It's like prepare like you're about to shoot this blockbuster, whatever. Like learn everything you can, because that's the only way I've ever learned. Is I remember for every shoot I'd go on, I would have no idea like, because I'd have to shoot stills too, how to do certain things. And I would just, the pressure of having to do that would just push me online to different tutorials and different, classes and whatever I could just to figure out how to do that. And then when the opportunity came, and the opportunity always comes, it was always terrifying. I always felt like I was not prepared and like I couldn't do it and that I shouldn't do it. That was the most important thing. Like, if I take this gig, I'm conning these people, like, because I'm not the guy.
Yeah. You feel like you're like oh my gosh, how long can I fake it till I make it type of thing?
It is,
right?
like, I feel like I'm the poster boy of imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I'm not joking. I feel like the imposter syndrome has like pushed me my entire career to really try to figure stuff out, because I genuinely feel in a lot of situations like, dude, you do not belong here. But it's been a good thing. It's really pushed me. And so, yeah,
because that's an interesting thing, right? The imposter syndrome, because that feeling of like you don't belong here. Some people can take that and be like, yeah, I don't, and then don't do anything with it. But you took it and say, oh my gosh, I've got to really prove myself to myself.
Yes,
I've got to, like, regardless of Blake or Ryan, it's like, to myself, I have got to prove that I can do this thing. You know. Because I saw that piece you did for Blake and it was beautiful. Like, I remember watching it and being like, oh my gosh, like this is so awesome. It turned out so great. And I was just like, wow, Bryan, way to go. Like, I
appreciate that, man. Thank you. And it was like, the thing is, it was a big deal because once she said that she believed in me, then all of a sudden I had some attention from some agencies saying that they believed in me. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, well, how would you approach this certain thing? And how would you do that? I'm like, I would just make it. It's so funny. And then transitioning to the commercial world, man, the transition. So I started making that transition into doing commercials, and what a weird world the commercial world is, man. It's so bizarre. I don't even know where to start with that.
Dude, I mean, I know it's like such a bonkers place, right? Because I remember there was this one time you were telling me, and this was before you worked with Ryan, but you had done this, like, what people don't realize is like a film shoot, especially like when you're doing commercials and all these things, like, you have no idea the amount of work and stuff that goes behind the scenes to see a 30-second ad.
Yeah.
Like, there is a huge crew behind the scenes doing all this work. I remember I was in a Clorox commercial for like, it was like a 15-second or a 30-second spot.
Yeah.
And when you watched it, you're like, I could have shot this on my flip phone, like, it was like, it looked okay. But the production behind it was insane.
Yeah.
However, I want to say a big however, because with you, I feel that they're like, Bryan, you have to do the impossible. Good luck. Because you always pull it off. Like, I remember you said you had you have to do like 14 commercials or more than that, maybe, about the suit company.
Yeah.
In New York. And you had like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, that was when my first commercial gig was selling suits. Yeah, I remember that. And it was, I think the difference with me was because I came up through such a different road. I was just like, once I would be presented with a problem and I wouldn't have any foregone conclusion of like traditional film school, like, this is the way it's supposed to be done. I'd just be like, oh, we could try it this way, or we could do it this way. And that was my first one. I think we did 33 spots in a matter of like 4 days.
Yeah, it was. I knew I was making.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. I was like,
I loved it. It was so much fun, and because I got to have a crew for the first time.
Yes,
a crew. Crews are the best.
Oh, they're the best.
They're so great.
Yes.
Like, people that just get, it's incredibly talented people.
And they run and they're like, okay, yeah, we need to get this done. And then they're all running around.
You'd be like, say, I want to do that. And they would do it. It was amazing. Yeah.
I love that. That's a good feeling.
Crews are great.
Yeah.
But then then I started to get to know the commercial world. There's things I loved about it and things I hated about it. It's just, everything felt so pre-decided and just
it's kind of like they already had the vision and you just have to execute their vision. Yeah. But you didn't really have a say in what you wanted, right?
There's that. And then also it just felt, it's like, the reason, like, it's the reason we all, whenever we're watching YouTube or whatever, and the commercial comes up, you're like, dude, this sucks. It's just boring. And it's just not good. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not good. Not good storytelling, or just, it feels like it had gone through so many levels of committee. By the time it goes out, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. You're like, oh, this is the worst.
This is the worst. And so, and then also the commercial world process is so bizarre. What you do is an agency will come to you. And this is what I learned, right? So now I'm in the commercial world.
Yeah.
So what I learned was, okay, this is how it works. An agency comes to you and says, they give you their campaign. They say, this is what we want to do. tell us how you would approach it. Basically saying this is exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then tell us how you need to approach it. And what you don't know is they're also going to like 10 other directors.
Right.
Asking the exact same question. And so then you spend the next week or two putting together your treatment of, oh, your vision is so incredible. I love this brand.
Yeah, you should stroke their ego.
This is so good. You guys are so brilliant for thinking of this. This is how I would approach it. And then you go through and how you would approach it, which I get. They're trying to find someone that can execute their vision. I totally understand it. And then what I found out early was the ratio of getting those jobs. It's like for every 10 you would submit, you would get 1. And then you get it, and then you'd finish, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that was really just fine. It's fine. But,
it was fine.
But creatively, you're like dying inside.
Yeah. Your soul has like left your body.
Has left your body.
Yeah.
But grateful, and you kind of get the thing. So that had been going. So I'm in the commercial world, and I'm doing pretty good, and things are great. Making money, which is the most important thing, just taking care of the family, and it's fine. But creatively, I felt just like, gosh, there's got to be something else out there.
Yeah. And
I was on a project, and I got an email from George Dewey saying, hey, I'm working with Bryan Reynolds, and he's going to be launching a company, and he said that you're the guy to talk to about helping us launch this video.
Yeah.
And he sent me the script, and I could not stop laughing on the script.
Yes.
It was just, I mean, my gosh, it was Ryan and George that wrote this thing.
It was the aviation gin one. Was it?
Yes,
the one?
It was the aviation spot.
Right.
And it was just absolutely brilliant. They were doing everything that I've been desperately wanting to do, because they were addressing all the things about the commercial world that was just so fake and so full of BS,
Yes.
And they kind of went right into it. They leaned hard into it, and it was such a fun piece. I loved it. And then we got the rights to use the River Runs Through It soundtrack through the piece.
Oh, perfect.
It's just such a fun piece.
Yes.
You can watch it on my website or whatever, but it's so great. And so we did that piece, and we had so much fun making that piece.
Were you just dying laughing
it
the
was
entire
incredible
time?
Because George Dewey, he's genuinely the most brilliant creative I've ever worked with. He had so many years of experience back in Madison Avenue, working for one of the top ad agencies in the world. He grew to hate all the same things I grew to hate.
Amazing.
And then he went on and actually met Ryan doing the original Deadpool.
Okay.
All the Deadpool ads. And I remember actually when the first Deadpool came out, the marketing around it, I was just like, because I was living in that marketing world, right? I'm like, this is insanely different, and I love it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the poster actually here in Provo. It was the 3 emojis. It was the skull emoji, and the skull emoji, a poo emoji, and the L.
Okay.
And I just thinking, oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah, it's so great.
And not knowing anything about it, but then I found out the story. And then anyways, we finished that piece, and I was just like, these guys, I'm like, I would do anything for these guys. Are so much fun. And then working with Ryan.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, dude. The first thing that I saw you did with Ryan was this Triumph piece, right? With the motorcycle. Remember that one? Because I actually, you asked me to like go through the actual written script and be like, hey, Charan, if you see anything that can be highlighted, like any pieces that Ryan says,
that's right.
That's like good.
That's
so
right.
I had done that before I sent it over to you. And then I met Ryan,
That's
and
right.
I was hanging out with him, and we were having a conversation about it. And I said, Ryan, I mean, I know I've seen a bunch of films, obviously, that you've done, but that piece is really, really good.
That was a fun little piece.
That was a really fun piece, and and it was so sentimental. It was so heartfelt. It was so
it was
good.
A neat one. Yeah,
it was a really beautiful piece. And
I appreciate it.
So anyway, I just love the fact that, like, he reached out to you, or he told George to reach out to you.
Yeah.
He'd be like, this is the guy.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
Unexpected, very unexpected. And that was the other thing too, is I've learned in the business is I feel like one of the most important things is the team, is being the team that you love. And that is what I love most right now with where I'm at, is the Maximum Effort team. These are the most brilliant creatives, but not just that, but just genuinely amazing human beings. And I've heard, it's funny because now I'm like, I've been doing all these incredible projects with these wonderful, like with Hugh Jackman and with Ryan, and then some of other Ryan's close friends.
Jimmy Kimmel, all those people, right?
And it's funny because I've heard horror stories about Hollywood. Like my grandfather, when I told him what I wanted to do, he said to me, don't do it.
Okay.
He said, don't do it. This is what he said. It's a dirty business, Bryan.
Yeah.
Don't do it. He's all shaky. Don't do it, Bryan. But in my experience, at least with Ryan's immediate circle, these are just really good people. Just genuinely, they love what they do, and they want to make a change for the better.
That's awesome.
As far as how they get involved. And you can see that if you start looking into what Ryan's been doing as far as all the social initiatives and trying to make a difference. It's just, dang, I've gotten lucky with that team.
It's
so
amazing. I mean,
lucky.
it's so cool because like the one after I've only hung out with Ryan twice, and the first time I met him, I immediately sensed that he was completely a brilliant mind. Like the questions that he was asking me, it was extremely brilliant and well thought out.
Yeah, he's a smart
He's
dude.
a very, very
like,
smart
terrifying.
dude.
Like sitting in a room with Ryan and George, I just kind of sit back and just the strategy and the thinking.
Yes.
It's absolutely it's a master. So for me, I was like, okay, so going back to that first job I had with them, I realized that I was if I could like be with them as much as I could, it would be kind of like a masterclass in comedy and timing and just so many different things. And so after I finished that piece, Ryan sent me this amazing text saying, Bryan, all I want to do is commercials. This is so much fun. Oh my gosh, this is so great. Let's do more of these, this and this and this. And that has been, then it just kind of amped to like 100 from there. And then we just have been just going nonstop.
Yeah.
Just where and the model for the longest time would be Ryan and George just coming up with some crazy idea, then coming to me, Bryan, let's do this piece. I'd be like, yes. And then I would be the execution wing of just shooting, directing, and then editing and finishing these pieces. And it was great because we could move at the speed of culture, like the Peloton spot. Okay. That we did. That was the first like really big breakout piece for us. So do you remember?
Tell me about it.
So Peloton had done this piece it was a piece where a woman was exercising a lot on her bike. Okay. And it turned out that her husband had given her the bike for Christmas, and it got a lot of bad press for that. Because it was a husband giving her wife.
Okay. I got it. Okay.
And so it got a lot of really, really bad press. And then in classic Ryan and George fashion, they find a way to make a bad situation and make it wonderful. Okay. So we found the actress in a matter of just a few hours. And because it's Ryan was able to get on the phone and like convince her to do this spot. And so we were able to find within a matter of like 48 hours or something like that. So something ridiculous. Find her, shoot it, and then I shot it in the morning, and then I had it posted. It was me, George and Kelly. We edited it at their house in a matter of just like an hour, and then I emailed it to Ryan, and he had it posted that night. Wow. And he was actually taking off on an airplane. I think he was headed to Brazil or something like that. When he hit send and when he landed, that thing had blown up.
Really?
So we realized then and there, that's where Ryan actually coined the term fast-vertising.
Okay.
Find something that's relevant right now and then execute immediately. And that's where I came in, where I could do that because I could go and shoot and I could cut and it could be done, finished. Typically in post-production, you get the edit, and then you've got to do the edit, and then you've got to do the color correction, and then you've got to send it to sound.
All that stuff.
And then all of a sudden a month has gone by.
And then it's not relevant
anymore.
Right.
And so, there's just no excuse for that now because we've got YouTubers and everybody just producing content just on the fly.
So fast.
But the commercial world, it's just really difficult for them to move, just change and shift or whatever. But Ryan and George are like, no, we're just gonna do it this way. We did. And
it's so cool that there weren't crazy gatekeepers, right?
No gatekeepers.
There's no gatekeepers. It's just, you just wanted to do something and you did it.
We did it. And the cool thing about it is so the actress kind of had this redemption moment, and it was fun, and we weren't poking fun at anything. It was just this positive thing again, making lemonade out of lemons. It was just this fun, really fun moment, but it completely exploded. And now, man, things just really took off, and we have just been the company has been growing like crazy.
Because you guys have been together now, what, 4 years, 5 years? No.
I've been working with them for about 4, but I think the company itself is about three and change. I want to say ish. Yeah, that we've been going, and just watching these guys bring in just some of the most incredible talent, the writers and just the creative team it's been really fun to watch.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's really fun. So now.
Because you were overseeing a lot of the team, I felt.
Well, it's kind of funny because like we all when you're in any startup, everybody's wearing a million different hats,
right?
And just trying to find, do we gel well as a team, and how do we grow, and how do we scale this, which is a challenge of itself. But just it's an incredible team, and I'm just again like I do not. I feel like all the time, like this is ridiculous. Like I'm just so lucky just to even be a part of this.
Right.
And I think that's another big part of this. I think a lot of people don't talk about is there's a luck factor, but if you're not prepared and you're willing to take that opportunity,
it just may never come your way.
May never come.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, we were talking about this. Like your ultimate dream, though, is to be like a full-on filmmaker, like directing movies, TV shows.
That was the whole why.
That was all why.
Day one.
From the day one, right?
Yeah.
But it seems that now you're in a position where you can actually make that a reality.
I'm hoping, yeah. So again, if I feel like I'm in this next like step. I want to make another transition, and this is it's a terrifying transition. But an opportunity came up about a couple months ago where Ryan. They're doing the craziest stuff, man. So Rob McElhenney and Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
He is absolutely brilliant. The guy, that show has been running for how many years now? It's one of the longest running. I think it's the longest running comedy.
It may very well
TV.
be.
It's incredible. So many seasons. I love the show. But he approached Ryan to buy a soccer.
A soccer team.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Wales. And we can't say soccer, it's football over there,
football.
right? But in Wales, he approached them to do it and that was, gosh, I want to say like a year or two ago. And Ryan said yes. And so they've been making this documentary. And so they've got a show on TV right now that is that documentary. It's called Welcome to Wrexham. And it's basically Rob and Ryan's experience just kind of going through and trying to build this team and trying to make it into something incredible. It's already incredible, but just this team has such incredible history. But they had been working on that documentary for some time, and they had to do one more episode, and so they approached me to help them with this episode, and George and some people had written the script, and it was this crazy idea of having Rob and Ryan in all these different formats on TV, on a cooking show, on a Sports Center show, on a Tonight Show, and so we had a very, very short amount of time to kind of build that set. And long story short, I got to direct, edit, and do all the post on my first TV show.
That's amazing.
Which was that just came out, I want to say a week or two ago, which is huge for me, because I actually the one thing about the commercial world, credits don't exist.
They do not exist.
They do not exist. So it's hard to kind of get your name built up in that world. And so in the film world, you've got to have your name on things so that people go, oh, okay,
that guy did that one.
He did that, and I trust him with this, the bajillions of dollars they're going to be throwing at this to be able to execute. And so that was a huge opportunity where at the end of the show, you get to see it directed by Bryan Rowland up there. And like this, so I am trying to make that transition into some more like long form storytelling.
Well, the thing is, you have that ability, you have that talent already within you. And what now you have is an incredible team of people that can help you to get to that level. Yeah. Right.
And that's really ultimately, again, that's been one of the hardest things for me to kind of realize is I have been this lone wolf, or was this lone wolf for so many years, just doing everything I could to just figure stuff out on my own. Like figure it out on your own and then execute, to relying on a team, which is a big shift.
That is a huge shift. How's that been for you?
It's been really difficult. I mean, there's a lot of like trust issues, like I'll just do it myself type thing, but you can't grow and you can't scale, and the team is incredible. So I'm very, very lucky to be where I'm at, and hopefully, just the beginning of some really, really fun stuff.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about when you have, we have the whole idea of like, you can't turn lemonade unless you have lemons first, right? Yeah. And we were discussing this, and you've had many lemons in your life. Like this whole transitionary, I'm a poster, like what do they call it? Imposter syndrome, that type of thing. All of that stuff and all of that luck and all of that opportunity came, but not without some severe lemons.
Oh gosh.
Like so many lemons, right? And we've had many conversations about some of these lemons, but is there one particular one that was like, dude, this is a big blow. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna recover from this one.
Like specific to the industry or just
industry, personal life, it doesn't really matter. Just something that was like, that hit you rough and how you were able to flip it around.
I think kind of going back to that story of when like that bank account just kind of dwindling away and just kind of realizing that the Calvary isn't coming, like that has hit me in so many different, like that hit me that one really big time, but then throughout my career it's hit me a couple of times. Like even in the commercial side, like there are those moments where I just had to just stop and be like, I've got to stop pouting and waiting for the work to come in and just start creating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I don't know if I can think of a more specific thing beyond the one I already shared.
Yeah.
So
no, dude, that's a great one, because the truth of it is, there comes a point where all you see are dead ends, and you still have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I think, I guess the thing that's really pushed me for that is just my family, right? Because I've wondered a lot, like if I didn't have a wife and kids, like would I still have that fire to be like, okay, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep fighting. Yeah. I think it really helps to have, at least for me, to have had that.
Something to fight for, right?
I need to have something to fight for. And that has been just a huge part of just motivating. Because it is, I don't know if there's anything much harder than waking up in the morning feeling completely rejected from everything and everyone, especially as a creator. You know, we're emotional people, and where you feel like you're not doing well and like that you just don't matter, and everything that you've done is just crap, and people kind of make fun of it or whatever, you know, whatever the thing, and finding the motivation to actually keep creating. And we live in this time right now where, my gosh, like, dude, I get on TikTok and there are the most brilliant creators out there right now. Like I actually get really intimidated scrolling through, being like, dude, I don't know. Gosh, actually, you know who else said this? Was the guy who directed Clerks, like Kevin Smith? Kevin Smith, yeah. So I think I read an interview from him saying the same thing, be like, dude, I don't know if I would have had the confidence to be a creator after watching some of this stuff. Yeah. But I love that we live in a time where everybody can have a voice and have a way to express that. And I feel like some of the most brilliant creators out there are the plumbers or the teachers or the people that are out working construction, and they have this outlet either through TikTok or whatever, and just creating wonderful content. So that's an interesting place right now, where I look at my daughter who's wanting to break into the industry, and like, where are things going to be in the next 5 to 10 years with the tools that we have access to, and with just how level the playing field is as far as creating. It's an exciting time. It's a really exciting time. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: like, what right now is your ultimate source of joy?
My family, 100%. My kids, watching my kids, you know, just grow and just find their own passion and kind of find their own way. I've got a son that's in Brazil right now. I've got a daughter that's studying to kind of do. She wants to be a director. And she is insanely talented, and she's very focused, and just watching them. I love watching when anybody just finds that passion and latches on and just really runs with it. I mean, I think you and I, you know, went to a screening the other day.
Yes, we did.
And like Robin Lively was in it. She is like, you're just watching anybody in their element and watch them be just completely enjoy it. And,
you know what's so cool about that is, like, what you're describing to me is seeing people truly come alive in their passion. And it's almost like seeing them come alive gives you permission to come alive yourself, right? Yeah. And I love it. I love, like, empowering people to come alive. I love when I come alive, it just feels so great, right? Yeah, and Robin was incredibly brilliant in that movie.
She's great in everything.
She's so good.
She's just effortless. So
I know,
incredible.
So incredible.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And the reason why I asked you that, the joy question, was because, you know, you're talking about being a creator, and you're talking about being emotional creatures. For me, I find that if I have joy as my fuel source, there's no stop to my creations.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's interesting though, because it's this, I feel like, yes, but how do you deal with the darkness, right?
How do you deal with the darkness?
How do you deal with the darkness? Like, what do you do? Because
it's a good question.
I feel like it's an important balance. Like, what's the Pixar movie? Inside Out.
Inside Out, right?
Sadness is a big part of, like, a healthy life, you know.
Right.
You got to find a way to deal with that. So
yeah, and that's a good question, right? How do you deal with the sadness? And the thing is, when I say joy, I don't necessarily mean happiness, because I think joy can also it can also have sadness along with it, right?
Yeah.
And it is tricky. Like, look, the last couple of years, even though we're creating all these things, it's been rough It's been very
you know
rough.
what? Yeah, I think that actually brings up some good stuff, because you and I actually did have a conversation a few months ago. One of the biggest challenges I've had over the last, so I've been in this masterclass for like the last 4 years, just watching this thing that Ryan and George and the team has built up.
Yeah.
And it, like, I had no idea what was about to happen to my life, as far as always working, just nonstop, to the breaking point. I remember I actually had a moment where I'm like, I can't take it, because just that was it. I mean, it was just, there was nothing else, and it was year after year. And I remember Ryan actually had to give me like some tough medicine, and being like, he's like, dude, you got to be the one that says no to stuff. Like, we will make stuff happen, but you got to be the one that says no, and like set that boundary. And I think one of my biggest issues is I've always wanted to just go all out and be a people pleaser, to the point where I break. And so, yeah, that has been a hard lesson for me to learn, of just, I've got to set my boundaries and kind of stick with that. And so, yeah, that's been a hard one, but it's it's very important.
Yes. It's interesting, right? To have those boundaries and to maintain balance and stuff. And, we were talking about, like, how do you kind of navigate this world when you're, you want to have joy, but you're also facing the darkness and the sadness, and how do you be a creator in that type of environment, right? I was actually having kind of a conversation about this the other night. Since 2020, when COVID hit, to now, I think I've lost about 15 people, 16 people, more than that, like that.
Really?
Yeah.
To COVID?
Some to COVID, some to cancer. Wow. Some had a brain aneurysm.
But in the last 2
years,
wow.
That's a lot of people to lose. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Right?
Wow.
It's okay, but it's given me a lot of time to think, and it's given me a lot of time to ponder a bit about, like, what is the most important thing for me in my life right now.
Yeah.
And like what Ryan was saying, like, hey, you got to be the one to say no. I also had to realize, because I'm a total people pleaser. Yeah. Like, I loved, like, just, hey, whatever I can do to make people happy. Like, I love doing that, to the point of running myself ragged.
Yeah.
And I realized that when I ran myself ragged, I wasn't joyful, you know, and I was living in heavy places. And when I lost those friends, and they're people our age, dude, they're not like older people. Some of them were, but some of them were like my age, like 41, 42. I know you're a few years older, but like, when you have those type of things happen, it's like a real reset to your system of like, hey, what's the most important? And for me, I realized, okay, relationships are the most important for me, but it also is a different, like, before I used to be like, hey, I'm just going to say, I want to have like 1 billion friends. Like, I just want to talk to everyone and everything. Now I realize, no, I do have a lot of great acquaintances, but how many friends do I really have? And they're like tricky. A lot more, it's a lot closer knit of a group, because I'm a lot more transparent with them. I'm a lot more vulnerable with them. And I share a lot of things that I wouldn't share with the general public with them. Yeah. Right. And, before it was like, acting is the most important thing. I can't wait to do all those things. It's not anymore. It really isn't. Like, I love acting, and it's super fun, but there's a lot more important things for me, like my relationships with my family and friends. And are we making sure that we love each other? Do they feel connected? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if I neglected those things because I had to do some random film shoot or some random thing, and heaven forbid they somehow passed away. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's morbid thinking. Well, the last couple of years have been morbid, and I got to see firsthand. In fact, just interestingly enough and sadly enough, so September 10th was National Suicide Prevention Day.
Wow.
And that's the day my friend took his life.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, can you believe that? Like, it's crazy. But it makes you realize, okay, like, there are some really interesting things going on. How do you deal with the darkness? And let me ask you that. How do you deal with the darkness?
I don't know, man. I think it's really tricky. I feel like it's been a really intense, like, last couple of years. And I remember I haven't been to as many funerals as you have, but I went to a funeral of this older gentleman that had passed. He's just an old cowboy guy, just like this generation is just incredible, right? This tough old dude, and his funeral was just really impressive, and so many people went, and that one messed me up, because I left that thinking my focus has been so much just keeping food on the table, and wanting to grow this thing. I'm like, geez, I don't even know who would show up at mine. Like if something like, and it's a tough thing. I think that is the greatest challenge, right? Is how do you get that balance? And I'm still figuring it out, man. I don't know if I have that magic answer. I think I do my best to commit to where I can with work and family, and that is it. Like that is it, and try to make sure it's first family and then work. But the family, if wife isn't happy and kids aren't taken care of, then I shut down completely.
Yeah.
There was a period where my wife was having some health issues and things weren't going well. And my gosh, I was trying to get through a campaign and I just couldn't get through it because
you had nothing in you. Yeah.
There's nothing in you, you know? So it's I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that besides just,
I once, I went to BYU and there was this professor that said something that really struck me.
Yeah.
And he said that in life, it's not about finding balance. It's about finding harmony. And I'm like, what is the difference? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, it's just another word for balance.
Yeah. It's like,
so
just
wise.
Arrange the letter differently, you know? And he said, no, it is a difference because he said like, and he was specifically referring to college students, but it applies to us now.
Yeah.
He's like, sometimes you feel like we got to get this done. I'm going to get that done. We have to like have like a perfect balance of all the things.
Yeah.
He said, but harmony is about looking at your entire life and realizing there are going to be some phases in life where some things are just more of a heavier priority.
Yeah.
And right now, in the last couple of years, it was like putting food on the table and growing maximum effort, right?
Yeah.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? There's going to be a time where you're going to transition and something else is going to take the hot seat, right? And so, and that time, then you're focusing on that, right?
Yeah, it's tricky though, man, because it's like you like everybody. I feel like everybody has like different family members or people that they know that are just incredibly successful, like power couples or whatever. And so the thing I run into all the time is the comparison thing, right? Like so I'm like, I look at Ryan, like, how the crap does this guy do it? He's got Mint Mobile, he's got Aviation Gin, he's got his film side that they're doing a bunch of films and TV shows. And dude, how is this guy? He has a great team, but still.
And he has a family,
an incredible family. He's got 3 girls, and they've got one on the way. They've got a kid coming on the way. Like how, if he's doing it, he's pulling this stuff off, and like, and I look at my team, everybody on the team, and everybody else. Like I've been working really crazy hours, but everybody is working crazy hours. Like how is everybody doing this stuff? And so it's hard for me not to fall into this comparison trap of like, well, they're doing it, which makes me feel like lesser. Because it's like when you reach those breaking points, I think those are the demons that kind of at least crawled into my head of like, well, they can handle it, why can't you? What's wrong with you?
It's interesting. That's a very interesting thought. My buddy Neil that passed away a couple weeks ago. If you looked at his family, you'd think this guy's got it all together.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's like super duper fit. He was an Army Ranger.
Wow.
Just did like actual wars in Afghanistan, like crazy, crazy stuff, right? He's got a family, 6 kids, all this stuff. And if you looked at him, like, and he's like, he got a successful, gun owner, like a gun shop, right? And if you looked at him, he's just like ripped, like just, beautiful family, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then you find out that he had major PTSD from the wars.
Yeah.
And things that really messed his head up, things that you could not get rid of.
Yeah.
It looked beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, he was suffering massively. So much so that he felt the only option for him was to take his life.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective, you realize, hey, Ryan and Blake are like that amazing power couple. They've got like a beautiful family. But I just feel like everyone is like they're susceptible to like the darkness and the heaviness, and who knows what they're dealing with that we might not see, and who knows what other people, and sometimes people you can physically see, oh, that's the problem that their issue that they're dealing with, right? But the important thing I think for you is you have always been a good person.
Right?
Good. So good. I mean, look at the way you're wearing that suit.
Come on.
No, but like seriously, like I've always just felt like no matter how busy you were, and you've been crazy busy, if I'm like, hey, Bri, let's go grab some lunch. I'll come over to you. You're like, all right, let's do it. And then you'd make time and we'd go get lunch and we'd talk. And what I loved about that was no matter how crazy and how busy the industry is and all this stuff, relationships always came first. And if you just didn't have time for your friends, you would make time for your family. But relationships always came first.
Yeah, I think you helped remind me of something that I think I've kind of forgotten ever since when I worked on that original documentary series, kind of going all over. One of the things I got to do again was sit down and interview people. We went to Italy, and before we went shooting, we went and did a scouting trip, and I think I interviewed over 200 people. Just tell me about your life, and how it's asking the same questions. How do you deal with problems? How do you try to overcome this stuff? And I did that everywhere. And that the thing that was just really humbling for me was just really understanding, like, that all over the world, we are all dealing with the same crap. And people are just doing the best they can for the most part, trying to find a way to get by, trying to hold on to some sort of core value to help pull them through into the darkness. And I think having some just more compassion with those around you, the guy that cuts you off or whatever, people are dealing with nightmares on a daily basis, and you have no idea.
You have no idea.
Like on the outside, like some people might look at, wow, Bryan gets to work with Bryan. Like I get to work with all these big celebrities, like people like. But then the stuff that's always under the surface that's churning in my life too, like that you don't talk about. Like everybody is dealing with something, and it doesn't matter what corner of the planet you are on, you're dealing with it. And I think as I've kind of had to go through the ups and downs, I've learned that humility is, there's nothing like a good illness to give you incredible humility, right? And to realize that you can't do it on your own, and to go and get help. And so, yeah, the tools and the resources are out there to help people. But that's so sad about your friend. I'm so sorry to hear about that.
No, it's okay. It's so interesting, you know. A friend of mine who is friends with Shia LaBeouf had a conversation, and Shia LaBeouf said to him, "There's a devil at every level."
Yes.
Isn't that so true?
Gosh.
Isn't that so true?
Oh, it's so true. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Man, I need to write down some of these stories. It reminds me, I interviewed this magician. This guy was an incredible magician, Nate. And he wrote a book. He went through a period in his life, and I don't know if this happened to you as a creative, but this guy is really talented magician, right? He traveled all over doing incredible stuff, but he reached a point in his late 30s where he lost that magic, and at least lost like the passion of like doing what he does,
the desire. Yeah,
you know, like it's that sense of wonder, like what happens. And so the video we did was all based around what happens when you lose that sense of wonder.
That's a good question.
And everybody, because as a kid, man, you go outside and you see a slug and you're like, dude, it's a slug. Freaking, wow, well, look at it, it's a slime. Whoa. Everything has this sense. And the whole video was based around the idea that we are surrounded by these miracles. The story he shared was a kid. He remembers going out. He was in Iowa. And have you ever been out to Iowa?
I haven't.
The cornfields?
No, but I've seen Field of Dreams and I love it.
It's just majestic. It's insane.
Right.
Just the ocean that's in front of you. And he has this memory as a kid where his dad would take him stargazing out in the middle of these cornfields, and the fireflies would all explode. And just that sense of just we are surrounded with magic and wonder. But then as you get older, it just slowly disappears. And everything that's magical around you, you hate. And that has happened to me. Gosh, I think I'm still going through that now, where you just take that moment in the morning to have some gratitude of the magic that surrounds you, you know? And this magician, he got to the point where he's like, dude, I've got to find a way to do a reset. And he went to India and had this incredible experience in India, and just the different thinking and teachings. And he came back completely reset. And it's a tough thing. How do you hold on to that wonder?
Do you feel like that's your greatest fear, like letting go of that wonder?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's one reason that I'm such a nerd, like with all the tech stuff, because like new iPhone comes out or some new feature drops and you're like, that's freaking magic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like, have you seen the new version of iOS 16 where you have the photos? Like, dude, get iOS 16. Like the photos come up. If you tap and hold on something, it cuts the person out. And then you can like paste them into different things.
Wait, what?
Dude, let me just show you.
All right. This is insane.
All right, let me just show you this little feature here. So
you
let's
guys,
say
everyone listening, please download iOS 16 immediately.
So dumb.
If you don't have an iPhone, I'm so sorry.
So here's my daughter and I, right? So I'm just going to tap and hold on this. It cut me out just then. So I've got this perfect cutout.
No way.
Like, what the crap? Like insane, like
okay, that's pretty amazing.
Tech. So that's one reason I feel like I've leaned into tech is because every 6 months or so I get this little hit of like dopamine or something that hits me of like, that is magic.
Right.
Or like these cameras that come out that can, the reason I love cinematography so much is that you can try to express the emotion of what you feel in that moment. Mm-hmm. When somebody shares a story with you of like, you know, when I was, that's what I love. And I'll sit down with somebody and I'll have them interview them. Like when did you first remember feeling that sense of wonder? Yeah. And this magician, he shared the story of going out to the cornfield and then having that insane responsibility to go out and retell that story on camera and try to convey that sense of magic. And what do you do? What are the tools available to you? All the little beautiful tricks and like all the things you can do, visual effects and motion graphics and the camera lens that you use, the frame rate that you use, all of that is speaking the language of wonder.
I love
and
that.
of magic that you are trying to just share that feeling. How do you convey feeling? And that's this time that we live in, is we are surrounded with the tools to create emotion. And what emotion are you going to choose to pick? And I remember when I first got into the business, and it's so cheesy. And if anybody from my team ever listens to this, they're going to be like, Bryan, dude, you're such a cheeseball. But I remember saying to my wife, honey, I want to use my powers for good, not evil.
I get it.
You know, because it's just, there's so much. We watched a movie the other night where we finished watching, we're like, why isn't every movie like that? Like, why isn't it's just so uplifting and so positive? Like I really hope that down the road, I don't ever want to lie and say that there is no darkness. We are surrounded by it. It's how we deal with it. It's how we can take that positive, beautiful sense of wonder and like try to deal with the darkness, because that's how we grow. That's how I've always grown. Yeah. Is, you know, I did a series right after I did the stuff. I did a series on addiction. And the people that approached me saying, listen, we want to do a series on addiction. And at the time, I immediately jumped on it because addiction had hit our family really hard.
Mine too, remember?
Yes. And I had seen what it can do and the darkness it can bring and how it can destroy lives. Yeah. And I wanted to approach this series I am not screwing around. I want to show the darkness and I want to show how people have overcome it. I don't want to dance around the idea that there isn't darkness, that there isn't pain, that there isn't suffering, but there's always a way. Because what happened was when I was doing all these interviews all over the world with so many people, it was interesting. I would see them whenever they would hit like this horrible roadblock in their life. And I'm talking horrible things that happen to people, abuse and terrible, terrible things, like family members, just horrible things happening to them. They would take one of two paths. They would go towards the light or they would go towards the dark. Yeah. And the people that went towards the dark, man, I don't, you can't blame them. It's so
you can't blame them.
Horrible.
No.
But it's which path do you take? And so, yeah, it's tough because in the moment,
especially when things get so heavy and so dark, it's so hard to even believe that there's a light.
Yeah.
You know, it's so hard to believe. It's so hard to believe in that sense of wonder and hope and what that felt like and what could that have ever felt like, right? A buddy and I were having a conversation, and he confided in me that his whole life he's had clinical depression, which is brutal. I've been, you know, I'm generally a chipper guy, happy guy, but I've had like little tastes of like depression and stuff, like just maybe like a couple hours or a day or whatever it was. And it's so heavy and it's so dark. But for him to have gone through this for as long as he has gone through it, it's so brutal. And he was saying, Charan, when you talk to me about happiness, when you talk to me about this joy and all this stuff that you're feeling, I can't even imagine what that's like. I can't even begin to taste what that's like.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? And so it's like in that heavy, heavy state to be able to like find that sense of wonder. And one of the things that you had said was like saying like you take a moment now every day like to find things to be grateful for. Yeah. You know, to find that little piece of gratitude. I think that's that is the key. I think that is like the real thing.
Yeah, it's tricky though, because I've dealt a lot with people that are clinically depressed, and that's a different world.
It's a totally different world.
That's a different world, and they're dealing with something that no amount of, it's funny, we always joke about this, like just have some orange juice or go out and have some exercise. Like no amount of it's just, there's at that point, like you've got to involve other things.
You got to involve like medication.
Like there's no like sense of like, here, you should be grateful for this yummy meal I just prepared for you. No, you're not getting out of bed. Like, yeah, I think that's a whole different level of like, how do you find hope and help? And I think at that point, if they're lucky enough to have someone that loves them and can support them and find the right resources to help pull them out. But the tricky thing is if you're with that person that is clinically, dealing with something that's really, really difficult, do you start to get pulled down? And like, how do you hold on to the light? Because that's a hard stuff.
It's a hard thing to do, right?
I don't know.
So let me ask you this. This is actually my final question really for you.
Yeah.
You've lived such a rich life.
So rich.
Like,
dude,
so rich.
Nowhere, you know what?
Dude.
Don't follow Bart Johnson on Instagram.
Yeah. Delete that. If you're following Bart Johnson or any of his High School Musical posts, it's ridiculous.
I joke that like his phone is always filling up with space. He's like, Bryan, I need more space. He's got like 40,000 like videos. That guy lives that life.
He does.
I'm a basement dweller.
Yeah.
That edits other people's rich lives.
Yes.
Let's just be real here. All right.
Well, Bart tried to hire me to edit some of his videos. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, is Bryan not available? He said, no, Bryan's not available. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. But it's hilarious.
That's the definition of a rich life.
That's a rich life. Yeah. No, but you have when I say a rich life, I mean like you've had so many adventures. You've had so many experiences. You've had experiences that people couldn't even dream of having, and it's been a rich life in the sense of like all kinds of emotions. Right. Yeah. It's been a very full life. It's been a very heavy memories and heavy experiences and incredibly joyous, awesome experiences. Knowing what you know now, if you could build a time machine and go back in time and visit your younger self.
Yeah.
What advice would you give him?
Well, I have a time machine.
I know.
I've gone back. Well, no.
A couple of times. I know you have.
Yeah. So, but the honest truth is it's actually happening right now with my daughter, who's she's freshman in college right now. And she's been asking all the questions like, like, how do I break in? How do I do this? How do I do that? And there was a big debate of, do you go to college? I mean, I think there's a genuine discussion that should be had around is like, are we getting what we're putting into as far as money into college? And like I am extremely pro education.
Me too.
I mean, my entire career has been based around the idea that you have got to be growing and learning and leveling up every single day. And if someone approaches you and says, can you do this? You, in a very terrified manner, say, yes, I can. Mm-hmm. I think, and so anyways, that's going back to her is like in high school, she was really interested in things. So she had a little camera. And so she just shoots on her little camera and she's just been editing all this content. And so but over the matter of like 4 years, I watched her turn into this insanely like really talented. And I was actually, when I would finish my edits, one of the things that drove me was I'd get really nervous because I'd be like, Sess, can you come and take a look at this cut? Yeah. And like buckle up because girl's got notes. Yeah. Like she's got notes and they're brutal.
Yes.
And they're going to tear all of your ego just to shreds of what you love.
Yeah.
Why'd you pick that music? It's okay, whatever. Okay, well that's not working, but like, girl, like she's
That's
great.
Amazing.
So, but my advice to her has been, go to college, but understand that what that relationship is with college. I said you've got an opportunity to meet some wonderful people, which is great. But as far as educating yourself, the cavalry is not coming.
Yeah.
This is on you. We talked about, she's like, well, I need to get a job and I need to do this. And I'm like, yeah, you do. That's great. But you've got a camera and you've got a laptop and you have all the skills. You can be a storyteller right now. And you can go out and start doing the stuff right now. Yeah. And I realized years ago that I would never be able to live in Hollywood. It wasn't going to work. with the situation with the family,
of course,
with the kids. That move was never going to happen. But I remember, and I don't know what happened that day. I think something like somebody had rejected me or said no to a project, and I was pissed. I was really upset. And I remember thinking, I'm going to make Hollywood come to me. And I just can't believe it, but here we are. And that's exactly what happened.
That's amazing.
And now I want them to go away. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Don't say that.
No, it's great. No, it's very empowering to know that, at least specifically in this industry, I'm not talking like, dude, I come from a family, like my dad's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, my sister's a doctor, and I'm a disappointment, right? Like, you're going to do that. Dude, go to freaking school and learn to not kill people. But in this business, as far as the creative world, I think do not sell yourself short of the resources available to you right now to express yourself and your voice. It is the most exciting time to be on this planet as far as being a storyteller is concerned, because that's all this thing is. Yeah. If you say you're doing commercials, whatever, making wedding videos, whatever, it does none of that. Stop labeling that stuff. You're a storyteller.
You're a storyteller. Yeah.
And start telling stories. And you've got so many. Everybody's life is rich and unique. Yeah. And I just feel like, use the stuff available now. Let's just go after it. So that's what I would say. Don't be ashamed that you didn't go to film school. Don't be ashamed that I remember walking onto my first sets not knowing anybody, like what anybody did on sets. Don't be ashamed of that. Lean in to that idea of like that imposter syndrome. Yeah. Lean into it. Go figure it out. Yeah. Go Google it. You do some tutorials on YouTube. I have changed editing software programs so many times over the years. Yeah. From Avid to Final Cut to Final Cut 7 to Premiere to, like, I'm moving all the time to different camera systems or whatever, just because I want to learn the best, funnest thing right now.
That's awesome, dude.
So it's like, just keep going after it. There's nothing stopping you.
That's awesome, man.
Don't wait for someone to tell you it's okay.
Yeah. My buddy JD, we were talking about this. My buddy JD is the showrunner of Lord of the Rings, or Rings of Power, right? Cool. Amazon. And, he's entering a world that is so massive, so huge. Yeah. And one of his mentors is J.J. Abrams, who's a very talented filmmaker. I mean, amazing, right?
So great.
And J.J. Abrams' advice to him was, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Yeah. And that's a great piece of advice, you know, like, because sometimes you have this idea of like, I feel like I need to know everything right now for all these people. But like, just being like, hey, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out together, and it's going to be amazing.
Exactly. That was one of the fun things for me, on at least working on these on these big sets, like getting used to working with these giant crews. The bigger the crew, the more relaxed I've gotten. That's because awesome. You have brilliant minds around you. And as a director, you just need to have an opinion. You need to have an opinion of which way you think you want things to go. And the whole army moves after whatever that is. But there's nothing better than collaborating with just people. Yes. You know? Like, you're right. I don't know. What do you think? Get their take. That's awesome. I feel like we throw up too many rules, and like, you have to do this, and this, and you're not a cinematographer. You can't do this. Can we not? Yeah. Like, it's becoming the level field the field is becoming more level, and let's just,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, Bryan, this has been so fun. Yeah, like, I've loved like talking to you, not just because of like all the cool, like awesome commercials and everything you're doing, which is amazing. But also that you've had this incredibly amazing journey that you were able to share with us.
Yeah, thank you for letting me do it. It's been fun.
Yeah, because this podcast is meant for the younger entrepreneur, right? Whatever their field or whatever their desire is. And I think that, especially the part you're talking about, the wonder, like keeping that wonder alive.
It's tough.
When things get heavy, right? But I think that's so beautiful. And like, the fact that your journey was, hey, I'm going to make Hollywood come to me. I have these dreams, I have these desires, but I'm living in Heber, Utah. And now you're
Heber City, Utah.
And now you're, you're working with Bryan Rowland, like, one of the biggest movie stars of all time. It just goes to show that really anything is possible. You just have to keep on going, and you know that there's going to be a lot of heaviness involved. But if you can keep that wonder alive and keep moving forward through those dead ends, you'll have no idea the light that comes your way.
You never know what's going to come ashore. I'll never forget that line in Castaway. You remember that?
Well, oh my gosh.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
He just got off the island and he's sitting in his room talking with the guy. He's talking about you never know what's going to be washed up on the shore. And then that thing washes up on shore that lets him get off the island. You never know what's coming down. And that is an honest truth. Like even in the darkest times, you never know. But you got to be open to what's the possibility of that thing is.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. Is there anything we can help you with posting or anything? You good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, man, for coming.
Thanks, Charan.
on.
Appreciate it, man. We made it happen.
Of course, we did it.
Like 2 years in the making.
2 years in the making, but we made it happen.
All right.
Okay. Thanks again. Thanks so much for listening to the Lemonade Stand podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you use to be alerted when we release new episodes. We'd also love to hear your feedback in the reviews, and if you or someone you know has an awesome Lemonade Stand story, please reach out to us on social media and let us know. Thanks so much and have a great day.